How's it going, guys? I just finished dinner, so I'm trying to get this video in. As you can see in the background, that's exactly what it is. If you're familiar with the game, then you know what our next blind Let's Play is. However, if you are not familiar what that background is and what's playing in the background, I will let you know. It is Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. Resident Evil is one of the 4 Resident Evil games I've ever played out of what is like 12 of them almost. The only ones I've ever played was Resident Evil 0 when it first came out. That was back on PlayStation 1 back in the early 90s. We have Resident Evil 2, the one-shot demo, which is the remake, which is still on my channel. Resident Evil 5, which is with Chris and the other lady, I don't remember her name. That was back in like my high school years. And Resident Evil 7 will be the next one that'll be on my channel. So to give you some to familiarize myself with this, I don't really bother playing horror games just because, like I said, I don't get scared. You know, a rare chance they may get me over a jump scare, but I usually predict every jump scare that there is. When it comes to games that happen to be like third person mode, I was usually never the biggest fan. Thankfully, Resident Evil 7 is not like that. It's in first person. It's just more so I'd rather have the HUD to be able to actually see my health bar, be able to actually see doors, interactions, and stuff like that. Doing third person mode is a style that I almost rarely play with any game except for a few exceptions, and one of those happened to be Gears of War, where I think Gears of War actually succeeded in being a third person game instead of if they turned into a first person. Most Resident Evil games I've ever seen have always been third person mode. They've also been extremely difficult, because I know in some of the remakes they've actually changed a lot of stuff that some people were happy with, some people were not happy with. The reason why I chose Resident Evil 7, especially when it first came out, I believe it was like 2017, it changed the whole Resident Evil franchise. It was completely something new. It wasn't just the same typical zombies, the same typical virus. You kept going back to Raccoon City. They actually, some of the game developers just said, you know what, we're going to take a chance, and we're going to actually fix my mic there. Take a chance, and we're going to try something new. And I'm really glad they did, because when Resident Evil 7 came out, this was back on my older PC. I was not going to be able to run it, and it was one of the games on my wish list. I've always, on my bucket list. I'm like, whenever I get a gaming PC, this is one of the Resident Evils that I wanted to play. And I watched all the big YouTubers play it. I even watched people who never played Resident Evil games or weren't a big fan of Resident Evil games play it on their channel. And it just got me so hyped watching all these YouTubers play this game, knowing where the jump scares are, seeing their reactions, how they would react to the story and stuff like that. And now it's my time. I know it's like 8 years later, so it has aged a bit. Resident Evil 7 is almost 10 years old. That's the age limit right there. Most people who are huge franchise lovers of Resident Evil, they liked it, but at the same time they didn't like it because it was not the same routine as the rest of Resident Evil games would be. I liked it, like I said, because it was completely different. It offers something completely new. Now, getting to the game itself, as I explained, I've watched a bunch of YouTubers actually play this game. However, I have not watched an actual full walkthrough of this game for a very long time. Got something in my goddamn eye. Since like at least 2020. So at least 5 years since I've actually watched anyone actually play the game. So it will be technically a blind let's play, because I will not remember everything that's ever happened in this game. Like maybe part of the game where you fight Mia, you run away from the father, stuff like that. Maybe some parts of boss fights, but that's really about it. When it comes to Resident Evil 7, this is a game that I'm going to explore up and down every nook and cranny and crevice. So if you're actually looking for someone who's just going to go, be forward line, just going to go straight for the storyline. You may hear my family in the background, so you apologize. Who doesn't bother exploring. You want them just to get to the boss fight, get to the story. This channel is not going to be for you, because when it comes to games like this, especially horror exploration games, it's something I would love to actually just explore, take my time with the game, and not actually rush it and actually try to enjoy it. Usually most horror games or even Resident Evil games like this are usually 8-12 hours depending how difficult the fights are, the difficulty you choose, so on and so forth. I have actually tested this game, as like you said, as you can see in the background, only up to the point where get to the van part where it says join us. I haven't gotten anything past that. I just wanted to make sure, the volume was fine, the brightness was fine, make sure the game actually runs. I mean, it's only like 8 gigs, and I've got like 32 on my computer, so I should be able to easily run it. I mean, if I can run Rust perfectly fine, I should easily be able to run Resident Evil. Now, I know that they are eventually coming out with more Resident Evil games. This will probably be the only Resident Evil game I'll ever put on my channel, besides maybe the remakes, and that's a huge maybe. Like I said, third-person horror games have never been my style. If I didn't actually choose this, the other first-person horror game that would have put on my channel that I would love to do is Outlast. And I know that game right there is already creepy enough for a lot of people, and especially if you're a person who does not like horror games, Outlast would not be one for you, because that will terrify the hell out of you. But Resident Evil is one I chose. It was between this and Halo 2, which would be from the Halo 2 Master Chief Collection. I have not played Halo 2 since the original Xbox, but it was like 2 golden opportunities, and you know what? I just finished up Halo Combat Evolved. After that, I was playing Halo Reach. I wanted to mix up a bit so I don't actually burn myself out on the Halo franchise itself. So we're going to the horror side. We're going to be playing Resident Evil. These will typically 20 minutes, as they usually are, just because of my slow ass internet. Anything above that in 1080, we're talking about like hours and hours to just upload. Usual Monday through Thursday. Fridays are always our trigger reactions. Maybe a few exceptions depending on the weather, because we are having a big rainstorm coming in at the moment. I know of the storyline, or at least most of it, about Evelyn, about Ethan, about Mia. I have watched the DLC. I think there's only 1 or 2 DLCs. My only thing that I've never actually understood when it came to Resident Evil is how Chris gets involved. Because the only games that I ever remember, if you don't count the side games like Code Veronica and Raccoon City and stuff like that, Chris has only ever been in Resident Evil 6 and I think Resident Evil 5. Unless there was other DLCs of those games that I don't know about, those are the only 2 that I remember Chris Redfield ever being in. How he gets tied into Resident Evil 7, I have never understood. Because he was in Resident Evil 5, he was over in Africa, and then I believe Resident Evil 6 takes place in Japan. And then suddenly, you know what? They just say, we're going to put Chris Redfield in the DLC, or at the end of the game, and then, in the DLC, and it was like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. It's just throwing a random character in there. When it comes to the rest of the Resident Evil games, I pretty much watched them all, except for a few exceptions of like all of Code Veronica and Raccoon City. I do know that Resident Evil Village, which is Resident Evil 8, does take place, it was like 5 or 10 years after Resident Evil 7, so I know all about that too. But for now, we're going to start with this Resident Evil. I'm going to take my time enjoying this goddamn game. It's heck, you finally got that one Christmas present you managed to save up all your money for, and you finally get to enjoy it. Well, this is my, Christmas present to myself, or birthday present, whatever you want to call it, in, that type of situation. Yes, so if you're not a fan of horror games, you're not a fan of jump scares, Resident Evil will never be one for you. When it comes to gore and any curse words, something like that, I'm pretty much going to keep them in there. I'll put like a rated R restriction. Hey, this is for adults only, or whatnot, because there is cursing in this game, and there is killing in this game, decapitations, blowing up, people being set on fire, stuff like that. So you have been fair warned on that one for this review, this game reveal, and I'll put like some sort of age restriction thing. That should really be about it. I think when it comes to the choices between you having to choose between Mia and Chloe, that one you'll have to watch my my Let's Play of to decide which one I choose. And I don't want to go into too much spoilers. And to pretty much wrap it up, the last thing would be the DLC. I pretty much just got this game for like $7 when it was on like summer sale or something like that. I'm not sure about the DLC, whether or not we'll do DLC or not, because I'm pretty sure did not come with this game. It's just strictly just the game itself. I'll have to check later on with the whole DLC and stuff like that. The game runs fine. I actually like my enjoyment of it. I don't frustrate too much or rage over the game. I might consider putting the DLC in there. I know the DLC is extremely difficult. It makes the original game look easy. I believe there's two. Like I said, there's either one or two DLCs because there's one that has Chris Redfield. You go after the son, the family son, the baker's son, and then there's one where it's the baker's brother. So I think there's like two DLCs, but I'll have to look into that. But I'm gonna stop rambling on. Let you guys continue doing what you're doing, and this, like I said, will be on Monday. Depending on the weather, if there's snow, we don't have power, don't have internet, I'll try to keep you guys updated on the Twitter as best as possible or the Discord. But either way, stay safe, healthy, and sanitize. Make sure to like, subscribe, and leave comments below. Make sure to share my videos, and I hope you will enjoy this as much as I will. I'll see you guys.